call the meeting to order. Please join me in a moment of silence. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, Cherry, please do roll call.
Tim Alcademus,
Excused.
Todd Clemens, Erica Connor, Don Cox, Larry D. Moore,
Here.
Art Schneider,
We'll be here shortly.
Craig Burks,
Excused.
Jeff Vogel,
Here.
Shirley Chalky here.
All right. This is an open meeting and has been noticed as such. And Art is here. All right, citizens' comments? Nothing? Okay. All right, move along. Approval of the minutes from August 8th, 2016. Have a motion?
I'll second.
Motion second. Any questions or concerns? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. All right. Moving on, action items, appointments and resignations.
We had one resignation. That's Kim Benedict, who is our library technology specialist at Clarendon. She resigned right before the start of the school year, and I put a little note in your notes to explain that. And then we had two appointments, Nicole Linsmeyer, who will be the social worker at Parkview and the high school. That's a one-year contract, and Cheryl Bulmer, who will be a music band teacher at Big Bend Elementary, and that also is a one-year contract.
Make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Extended foreign and study trips.
So we have two field trips that we're looking for your go-ahead tonight. Both trips, our staff and students have attended a number of times in the past, especially the German trip to Waldsee in Minnesota. The Spain trip's been done twice already. Nick's here if you have any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Nick?
Do we approve these every year?
We do.
Right. Anyone else?
Board policy.
I'd like to make a motion we approve.
All right, do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Okay, motion carries. Next, we're gonna skip down to number 2A, the MHS project update.
Wanted to introduce everyone to our lead architect, Chris Egger from Bray is here tonight. And Chris has been doing a fantastic job working with the administration of the district and all of the staff members and community members that have all kinds of input for him with this project. And so they've been doing a nice job taking that input and putting it into work, making it work. So first of all, in your packet, we have the floor plans for the 50% milestone of the design process. And we wanted to make sure that everybody saw those plans and had an opportunity to ask questions. So you can ask questions of me, Chris, Kurt, both here to ask or answer any questions that you might have, address any concerns that you might have. And we'll get those up on the screen also.
Question already?
Well, just from a timeline standpoint, at this point, what, has it changed any of what goes first, or what will be done second, and so on? Is that,
The phasing of the interior renovations, yes, is changing fluidly. We're working with Jim, Darren, and trying to make sure that, the teachers are able to be moved before any interior renovations can go. But as far as the exterior new buildings, the both new buildings will be started in January, or they're going out to in January, and then putting the foundations will start in February. So that's still the plan.
The first thing that's coming up though is we're actually getting ready to get started next week on some parking lot
work. So it's a minor component. It's basically making ready the site so when the big stuff starts, we have the site ready. But if we can get all our contracts, and we're waiting for the permit yet, that hopefully will be coming in on time at the end of this week here or beginning of next week. We'll start some site utility work next week. So there's some fire hydrant moving and on that southeast corner of the school, and then tennis courts as well. So might see a little activity next week. Really, the bigger equipment will show up that following week. We got homecoming. We got to work around a little bit that next week.
So as of January, we're looking at doing some starting work on the front for the Performing Arts Center and the gym. Is that right?
And what they're doing now is allowing for the buses to go and move to the south, so because obviously we'll build it, they want
Right.
that.
The bids are going out in January. End of February, you may see some footing stuff. March is really where you're going to see a lot of the work starting.
So that official phase one is still the gymnasium, the Performing Arts Center, and what Chris was referring to as far as working with Jim Barron and the high school staff and making sure that we don't have too much of a disruption is really the second floor. So we have the second floor areas that are being renovated, and I think the plan right now is to do these right here for phase one. Starting in March, the people in the current classrooms right there with these are the renovated ones. They will have to move, and then they will do that renovation. And then later in summer, they'll work out on some of the other second floors. But there won't be quite as much disruption as we initially had planned for phase one.
But the reason we're here is to talk about these.
So we wanted to talk about that, but first we wanted to just make
Okay.
sure, any questions, I know we had an email, someone had expressed that there were a lot of changes. There really have not been a lot of changes, and I know that we've talked about this before, but one of the big changes that we made based upon staff input was in the music wing, the music classrooms. We had our orchestra program staff felt very strongly that they needed their own classroom. And orchestra has been growing. They've been doing a nice job building that program. So instead of 2 classrooms where we're gonna have orchestra and band share, we now have 3. So orchestra, band, and choir. So there will be 3 classrooms instead of 2. That was a big change, about as big as we've done. And then the other one was swapping the academic resource center and the IT academy. So we now have the IT academy classrooms here on the first floor, and academic resource went up to the second floor where we were gonna put IT academy in the science room. And again, that was a Jim Darren and high school staff input decision. So,
Tell me that again. I mean, 'cause upstairs was where the science wing is, was there a room or something up there?
right, so that's for the science, that's where we have our math, what do we call it, Ron, our math assistance program?
We call it academic resource.
Academic
The
resource.
one that was in the corner over by the study hall?
So,
That one?
I'll just put, this is IT academy here, and then I'll just flip over to the other.
Oh, I suppose I can look on there. Dang.
Yeah, I think it's on, labeled there.
And what's there now?
So it was the science teacher's office.
Oh, okay, that's what I did not know.
So,
Okay, thanks.
it would be this area.
Okay. And there was some space.
There's lots of space.
What was the reason behind
Great question. One thing was the desire for the IT academy to be more of a central place where it be more visible. Another reason was for the IT academy classrooms to be close to the IT area. And I think also because some academic resources on the second
not.
I know, which is got, I'm like, wait a
That's
second,
why we
let's
decided
try
to
it,
meet
let's
with
try
her
it.
and go over that.
You did do that? Okay, good, and that went well.
I think what we did say that caused some consternation was that in this area here, we don't know who will be placed in all of these classrooms. There's enough classrooms for all our staff, but how Jim and the high school administration will configure the departments within these renovated spaces, that's not determined yet. So some of the people, these are social studies classrooms. Could Jim decide that all the social studies teachers move here? Sure. And then this becomes world language and this English. That's to be determined. So I think what we said was that all of the teachers might have to move, but not that they wouldn't have their own classroom. I shouldn't say all the teachers, but some teachers who have first classroom now might have to move. I don't know where the confusion came from.
I think it was, while this was going on, some teachers might have parks while construction is going on.
That's a good explanation, yes. While we are doing the construction, these people in this area will be displaced, and yes, some of them might have cars to travel for March, April, and May of the second semester this year. That's more likely.
And they can't have lunch or use the facility.
That would be false also.
So, and so those classrooms that were on the far end over by the old study hall room, those
Yeah.
are the ones they're consolidating over to the academic resource area? They're moving those from behind there over to where the, over there, that's what they're doing?
They wanna consolidate
yeah,
all
right.
those academic resources.
Right.
We had one on the first floor, our goal classroom, we had some over here, we had some down there where the center is projected to be located, so Jim really wants, and I want that also, to consolidate those all in one.
And those teachers were involved in that, and they're happy with what their end result is going to be for the most part?
So this is a nice, where we have our, Ron, what do we call? This area here again, where he is Jim and our tutoring, Rise. So that's a nice place now. I think our Rise teachers will be happy as long as this is a student space. But I think people are gonna be really pleased once they're in
The new space,
Yeah, absolutely.
because that's all renovated space.
Right. It's gonna be
So it's
very
gonna be
nice.
all
And more
new.
natural light.
It will meet the students and the staff. But change is
Not so much a change of the word, you know.
And then the other big change, and that was a board request, was moving the gym. If you recall, initially, we had it just west of the south gym. We moved it here so we could potentially expand someday down the road. And that's why Chris and Kurt are here to talk about some decisions that we have to make now about future expansion. What do we wanna do with this three-station gym, which is gonna be a fantastic facility? This three-station gym, I want to point out, is a big gym already. It's a very, very nice sized gym. It is bigger than what we have currently. And Chris is gonna show some slides that can demonstrate that. But we need to decide if we're gonna spend some money now to make this gym expandable, or if we're gonna wait and let that be a cost down the road. And I guess one of the questions that we have is, when you said we want to be able to expand this three-station gym, did you want to be able to expand it into a field house with a 200-meter track? Or did you want to be able to expand it by adding another gym to make it a four-station gym? What were your thoughts? We agree that it's a good move to move that three-station gym to the location we have it now. That is a great place for it to be if we wanted to expand down the road. That wasn't gonna happen in its previous location. But let's talk a little bit about the future. What did you want it to look like down the road? What possibly you want it to look like?
gym now really allows us to expand west and south. Originally, we would have been able to expand west somewhat, we didn't have a lot of room, and south was not gonna be possible because we have your fields right below really, which is why you really can't expand the distances. So this, what you're looking at right now is what our current design shows. It has structure running north-south, which is the short way, which allows us to have a lower height building, and less structure that's less expensive. This allows for expansion both west and south, so that would be options 1 and 2, 1, 2, and 4, actually. Options 1 and 2 really are if we're expanding south. There's things that you can do now, and there's things that can be put off into the future. And it's really, how do you want to do it? Do you want to do it now, or do you want to do it in the future? You're going to pay a premium in the future, obviously. So option 1 really, again, is north-south structure, 3 wood court gymnasium. In order to expand in the south, we've allowed for openings in the precast so that your 200-meter track can go through the openings in the future. Now again, so your expansion to the south, so we can go to the next slide, Tony. So you can see options 1 and 2 on the left, option 3 on the right. 1 and 2 would maintain the existing south wall that we're designing in this now. So that'll be a precast wall. You've seen openings with doors, with 2 overhead doors, and then 3 large panel openings that will allow the track to run through it. But you don't have a full field house. You have 2 gymnasiums that are attached that allow you to have a track and obviously 3 basketball courts with 1 main court in the center. The option 3 on the right is a full field house. Now in order to do that, you will need to turn all of the structure to allow it to run east-west. In doing that, you bump up the building by about 4 feet and the structure by about 4 feet. The cost for that is obviously a lot more than what we're planning for right now. Option 1 would have no cost associated to it. Option 2, leaving the precast wall where it is now, ranges from about $60,000 to $100,000 of added cost now to allow for that expansion in the future. You don't have to do those things right now. You can do those in the future. Again, there'll be a premium because it's, anytime you have to bring in equipment again, you're gonna have some alternatives. And then option 3 is about $500,000 right now above where you're budgeted for this building, but allows you a full open field house with 200-meter track, 4 wood courts with 1 major center court. And then option 4 is an expansion to the west. So this would allow you to run structure again the short way, north and south, would be no cost now, and the smallest cost in the future. It would allow you to have 4 wood courts and 2 major courts if you wanted to. This option is currently probably the least expensive moving forward in the future, but doesn't allow for a track. Doesn't allow for 200-meter track, the 160. It allows for an actual running track. So what we're hoping for tonight is just to get a feel of, are you hoping for future expansion? What kind of expansion are you hoping for? Is that going to be, because obviously all of these have implications on how we design the building, cost implications now and in the future. So what we're hoping to get from you tonight is possible decision on how we should move forward, both in which direction the structure should run, what costs should be now, and what costs should be in the future.
So if I understand it, if we were to decide that we wanted to have it possible to expand it into a full field house at some point in the future,
just like to make the point because I am conveniently on the track team. But Coach Komar said like a long time ago, and this was like probably my sophomore year, junior year, one of those two. But he said that if he had a field house at McWanago, he would be having meets all the time at the high school. And I don't know how much revenue that would bring in, but that would be a significant thing, not only because Ms. Hanisch was talking about branding, bringing in nice people to the facilities and stuff like that, but just get a nice feel and have a nice field house would be something that would be huge, not only for the track team, but I think just it would kind of put out a statement to a lot of other schools that are in the Classic A conference. Because I think some of the only other schools are Arrowhead, and if Oconomowoc comes in to our conference, those would be, I think, some of the only schools that am I right? I'm not quite sure. I think so. I think those are the only two. So that would be a huge thing.
So the only two that what, Max?
Oh, that have a field house.
Okay,
Sorry.
so Arrowhead does not have a field house, believe it or not.
They don't.
No, they do
Okay.
not. So Oconomowoc does with a 160-meter track.
Right.
And then, as you may know, Waukesha North, South, and West all have field houses to a varying degree. They're all a little different, but they have field houses in our conference. Then that leaves us, Muskego, who do not. Kettle Moraine does not, and Catholic Memorial does not.
But no, none of those have a 200-meter track. Don't they have
No,
the
no.
160 as
There's only one
Yeah,
school in the state of Wisconsin
exactly.
with a 200-meter track.
Right. And that's why, I mean, I know Komar said that during the steering committee about that everybody goes down. And it's like in the southern part of Wisconsin, I think.
So
where
northern
that-
Illinois, some of the Chicago
Right.
suburbs have high schools have 200-meter tracks,
Right.
but in Wisconsin there is just one.
I think my opinion is there's no point in building a field house unless you have a track. And the
160?
The 160 was pretty much useless to the track team.
That's correct.
The 200 is the only thing they would actually use.
So where would that $500,000 come from?
As we've been going through this process and getting staff feedback, we got a lot of nice to haves, and so far we've been able to fit the majority of those nice to haves in. So if we said, okay, let's get this, let's put the $500,000 into a future potential expansion. Some of those things that would be back on the table that we have in right now that may come off is stuff like that orchestra room that we talked about, having a third room. Sprint right now, the 3-station gym. We made it a little bit larger for a sprinting lane, so we got the 3 wood courts, and then there's an area to the south there that allows for sprinting, for long jump, triple jump, and pole vault practicing. So that would be back on the table. Stuff like when we start talking about the interior, how far do we go with replacing flooring in the corridors, right? Where do you start and stop? Obviously, if we're spending money on something different, there'll be less that we'll be able to do as far as replacing the flooring. Tech ed equipment is we have a budget line item for tech ed equipment. I can guarantee you that they're going to want more probably because tech ed equipment is expensive, especially when you talk about trying to match exactly what the current technology is. So I think we have a decent dollar amount out there, but that's money that could be spent elsewhere. Our soccer field, we have a new soccer field, which is the existing practice field. Do we build a new announcer stand, or we move the existing announcer stand over? Those are all different items that are nice to have, didn't necessarily have it as part of as a line item because they're more detailed. It's things that do they have greater priority than adding $500,000 for a future thing that may or may not happen, or not? That's really the question is what's got more priority.
So after the $500,000, then let's say that's what we agreed to do. What would the cost be to make Plan 3, Option 3, a reality?
In today's dollars?
I guess, unless you have a crystal ball. No.
Yeah, so in today's dollars, I think the C.G. Schmidt worked up, is that the 11.6 million? So 11.6 million in today's dollars, if we said, oh, let's put an addition on and go the full 200 meter track, today's dollars would be 11.6 million.
Okay. And the other one that gets us to a 200-meter track is option 1 or 3, 1 to 2 or whatever.
Yeah, options 1, 2, and 3 will allow you to have a 200-meter track in the future. They're gonna be about the same cost in the future. It's just what you're spending now and what it looks like. So, options 1 and 2 have a wall in between. what would
The
be
middle.
North, right, and south, I would say, but the track runs through it. Option 3 is full open field house. Both those options, expansion-wise, will cost the same.
But
11.6 million?
but again, the 1 and 2
Less now.
is how much now?
So 1 is nothing now, we've already got that in the budget. I shouldn't say nothing, obviously,
It's already.
right, but it's in the budget. 2 is allowing for, it's that same option basically, but beefing up some of the structure, allowing for this future expansion now. And that's between 60 and 100,000 to do some of those items.
60 and 100 dollars. Okay.
And then option 3 is,
Okay.
and option 4 is where we make, obviously, that's not it.
Option 4 is what's on the screen right now, where we would just expand west by adding one more basketball court, but there would not be a running track.
So do we have any pictures of what it, have you seen where they just run through the openings or whatever?
I don't know of any schools where that's done right now.
Why did you come up with it?
Well, first of all,
Can you imagine that it can be done really well and
I
look
can.
cool?
I can. Obviously, these openings that we're talking about are 21 feet by 20 feet high, so they're big openings. You're not gonna have bleachers right in the middle of the field house, where you can see all directions. You're gonna have, for basketball, you're still gonna have the exact same thing you have in either. But if you wanted to watch a track meet, obviously, there's gonna be times when you're not seeing that person all the way through. So, that's something that you have to be clear about.
When they worked through what that future option could look like, the precast panels with the openings was one of the options. They also talked about in the future putting columns in with cross braces, so it's more open, but you still have something there,
Something.
right? You still have something there, and it's, a decision that wouldn't have to be made now. It'd be a decision that when they do decide, or if we decide to expand in the future, you could do the precast wall panels with openings or steel columns with cross bracing throughout, so it's less visual breaks.
So, if we would go with the nothing extra, it's still possible in the future to go to either one of the other two. It would just be you'd have to pay for, it's not that you're leaving something out that then can't be replaced. It's that it would just have to be put in the future. So your $60,000 to $100,000, let's just say everything stays the same, everything costs the same. Let's just pretend for a minute. The $60,000 to $100,000 is the same price it would cost now as it would cost in 10 years if the prices stay the same, but you could do it. Yes?
Yes,
Yes?
it wouldn't look as pleasing, I would say, because if you did it now, like for instance, if you beef up the joists, you're really just changing the joist size. You would never notice that. In the future, you'd have to reinforce those joists, so you'd have some cross bracing. But most people wouldn't.
There would be so if it costs $100,000 now, we're expecting it's going to be a premium to that, not if you're looking at a $11 million project to add on, not a significant premium at that point in time, right? So if you get bar joists out that are heavier weight now versus going back and reinforcing, there is a slight premium to that. In the overall order of magnitude, it's not not, huge. Probably the bigger thing to be thinking about is when you're adding that cross bracing, it's not that clean joist now. Now you got some cross bracing in to help reinforce it, you know, so.
Okay, so I just wanna be sure before, first off, I don't like getting the information then making a decision the same night. I like to be able to think about it and see what else. Okay, so that is my personal opinion right now, cause we tend to, okay, let's get the information, I'll make a decision. I would rather be able to talk to somebody else and get some input on it, what the community thinks. However, what I wanna be perfectly 100% sure is if we do what we're gonna do right now, in 10 years, 5 years, if FOMA wants to come up with $12 million, they can put their field house in. And still, our orchestra people can have their orchestra and our other things can have it right now. Is that correct?
There would not be an open expanse. You would have a wall or columns where that existing south wall is. So if you want option 1 or 2, either of those options would have a wall or columns along that existing south wall. If you went with option 3, then you're correct. They could expand it and it would look like, as if you did it today.
But if we
What
did,
she's-
I think what Sherry's saying, if we did nothing different than what we've already planned,
Option 1.
really the only thing that we could do 5 years down the road for the $11.5 million, you would have the wall, you would not be able to, after the fact, create a space that was totally open, because we have to go in there right now and do these other modifications to allow us to have a fully open, field house somewhere down the road.
And the reason for that is you have structure running north-south right now. In the future, you'll have to have structure running east-west, and that'll be a taller structure. And that's why you've always had to have something there to cross brace and allow, for movement. So if you want to do a field house in the future, there's really only one option. If your idea of a field house is wider, that would be option 3.
That makes sense?
No.
That's not what
I
I'm
think-
asking.
I think what she's asking is if we stick to the original plan without any modifications or changes, no add-ons, can that plan be added on to make a field house down the road? Without
Depends
any
on
changes?
what you define as a field
Well,
house.
he said yes, but either a wall or with cross
With a
bracing.
200-meter track.
Yeah.
You can have a 200-meter track, you would have
Without the
very
without
large-
adding the $60,000 to $100,000 now.
What did you just say? It sounded perfectly fine until you.
Without adding the $60,000 to
Right,
$100,000
right.
now, yes, it can be made into a field house, but there's going to be more obstructions in the way when they build the track and then between the two gyms, correct? Between the
Well-
two areas.
Well, but you can do it either, in the future, you can do it either way. Yes? You can do it
No.
either way.
No.
No,
No.
you cannot.
So
That's
if you wanted somewhere down the road, do the full field house,
$500,000 too.
Without a wall.
You'd have to do
Without a
something now.
wall, you have to spend the half a
You have
million
to
now.
spend it now.
Or tear it all down and build it. Right?
And
If
then
it's
it's-
really structural.
And that's why we brought this one to you guys. Usually we would not bring,
And timing-wise, if we decided this tonight or on the 26th,
so Chris can
That
give you a
is
better
fine.
idea of the ramifications, for,
Yeah,
What-
so the issue that we're running into is obviously there's two totally different structural.
right.
And, we're being pretty tight on when they have to really sit down and see. They've been holding off for a decision, so I mean, I think it's probably doable to wait. But I wanna get really good set of construction documents out, so I'm hoping so we can make a decision quickly. Maybe that's not gonna, maybe we wait.
Has anybody talked to the track coach about this wall in the middle?
they do not like it.
So you're not gonna hate, they're gonna love it, but is it doable? Can they run a track?
So we
the
met
wall
with
in the
Andy
middle?
Trudell, Vince Komar, and a few other coaches, and I can tell you that they were opposed to the field house with a wall in between, strongly opposed. Am I,
Their initial reaction, track coach and athletic director, kinda had the take of, well, really what are the chances the community's gonna support 200-meter track expansion in the future, especially after doing the big project here. Is that gonna happen in my lifetime or not? So their initial reaction was, well, that'd be fine, because I hate to spend money now that could be spent elsewhere. And I think as they started talking through it with other coaches, that, well, no, I mean, I'd rather spend that money now. And then I started talking, well, are you okay then losing that sprinting track? And then, no, I didn't want that either. So as far as losing the sprinting track now, if I said an option of having your sprinting track in there now, or putting $500,000 into structure, he didn't want to answer that question. So I mean, it is a tough decision.
How much is that? How much of the 500,000 is that?
The extra running track that we put on is actually roughly about that.
So their choice is to have it now or later, and maybe have it now or maybe later.
No, just to clarify, what they're referring to is just a sprinting lane.
Right.
It's not a
And
full track.
Right, but what you're saying is it's about the same cost. 'Cause I am,
The sprinting lane to the south is roughly about the same.
and cause I'm not willing to have the orchestra people and the tech people give up something else for the athletic portion of our division, okay? So that's totally my thing. If, as an athletic department and as athletic community, they'd like to give up their little piece of whatever, the pole vaulting thing for now, in hopes that in the future they can have a full field house, then that is another thing.
So that's a tough call for them to make, because there's no guarantee that
Right.
we'll ever be able to convince the community that we should build a field house with a 200-meter track.
And it's a
And
tough
so,
call
of
for us
course,
to make.
most coaches will say, well, then I'll take what I can get now for the students and the athletes that we have at this time.
Excuse me, I'm a little hoarse from the weekend. Refresh my memory on the survey that went out to the community, the difference between the referendum that we ended up submitting and the referendum question of adding a field house. There was a difference in cost. I don't remember what that difference is. So it was 7 million maybe, or it might have been 12 million. I don't recall. But I think the town was quite opposed to having the field house and that extra cost. But when you asked for the referendum, they were very much in favor of it. So I think the community, when presented with those two options at the time, spoke loud and clear that they didn't support spending an extra 10 million or whatever it was for a field house. Now maybe they thought, well, that one's cheaper, that's why I'll vote for that one. But I think the survey was written well enough to really give them thought about that. Is it worth it to them to spend an extra 10 million for a field house? And they said no, loud and clear.
So
I don't know that they'd have the same answer in 5
So
years.
just to
10 years. I don't
review
know.
the survey results, the gym expansion, we had 8 different areas that we were renovating. The gym expansion was the lowest of the 8 when we surveyed, but there was still support for it. However, the question about the field house was upside down. There were, and I don't have that in front of me, but it was about 65% opposed to a field house and 35% in support, where the others had majority people supporting the expansion ideas. So Don's correct that there was very little support from the community on the survey for a field house.
I would assume that would be the same response 5 years down the road. So if we were ever going to get to a point of having a field house, it would be something that we'd have to fund ourselves. And do we ever see that feasible?
Well,
Right.
the option one has that sprinting, the existing one has that sprinting lane and everything on it, obviously on the south part.
Yes.
Yeah, south of that, yeah.
And openings in precast for future track.
Right, and is that, what is the price on a freestanding field house nowadays, any idea?
Not being the construction manager, probably don't want to throw anything out there right now, but I mean, it's gonna be, the structure that we're putting together is precast. Obviously, you're paying some premium for the entrance area.
Right.
That's a little nicer, a little more upscale. You know, but it depends on how you build it. I mean, if you do
Yeah, I like, you know, when I'm athletic supporter. I don't know what you call that. But option one provides options, and it has been approved through our community. And, you know, if we wanted, if a member or something wanted to organize and get their name on it, just like the Arrowhead of the World freestanding, you know, ice center and various other things, we definitely have the land to do it. And, you know, that is a viable option if someone wants to do. And it'll just add to our entire facility. So the option still is there. We're not taking anything away. We would be able to throw them two options. Have a somewhat wall or have a freestanding one somewhere down in the future. So I don't think we're taking any options away. And we can't take the money away from the IT and the orchestra and everything else. I mean, it just can't. At this point, you can't take from things like the academic, things that will add to the jobs and things and the entire experience. We are adding to the athletic experience big time. I mean, it's great. I'm sure every kid's gonna be thrilled to death. You know, unfortunately, if we go along with all the other school districts that don't have a 200-meter track, hopefully someday they will. So that's my thoughts.
Do we have consensus on that? Okay. All right, great. Thank you. Well, we have Chris and Kurt here. Anything else about the project?
Those two rooms for the orchestra and the choir, are they half the size of the band, each of them?
No, the band's about 3,200 square feet, and those are both about 28. So they're actually pretty significant.
That's going to be a fantastic space, that whole music wing, the Performing Arts Center, and the music classroom, that music classrooms and the storage and the practice rooms. It's not even comparable to what we have right now. And you know how bad it is right now. It's going to be great.
Kurt, are you leaving?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so
No.
you'll be there. Because I just have questions about the shed, as long as you're gonna be here, then maybe at the end then.
Yep. No, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else? All right,
All right,
thank
great.
you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, let's go back up to committee reports. We got Learning Committee, the National Science Foundation grant.
Yeah, Nick can talk about that grant possibility. Exciting possibility.
So this is on page 16 in your packet. As you know, we've been working pretty significantly over the last several years with UW Whitewater, our master's degree program that's offered on site for our certified staff. Also, we had a much smaller, about $42,000 outreach grant through UW Whitewater's continuing education department at Rolling Hills. And through those activities, Dr. Matt Vick, who works in the curriculum and instruction department at UW Whitewater, approached me about wanting to write a grant for the National Science Foundation. He's actually taken what we've been doing at Rolling Hills for the past 3 years and has really made it kind of a focus of his scholarship. You know, professors do research and publish papers and things, and this has really become a focus for him, the idea of embedding an undergraduate undergraduate methods class in an elementary school, and the impact that that has not only on the prospective teachers coming out being better prepared because they've spent more time in authentic classrooms, but also the impact that it has on the teachers who are working so closely with undergraduates more consistently. I know that when I did my field study work in science, for example, I took a class on campus that met at like a regular 3-credit semester class, and then went into a school maybe twice that semester, once to observe and once to teach one lesson. And that experience is pretty insignificant compared to what the students in this on-site class are getting at Rolling Hills currently, where they're able to go into the classrooms much more frequently, able to dialogue with our teachers much more effectively. And so this grant through the National Science Foundation would provide us with another opportunity to continue that work in partnership with UW-Whitewater. The reason I'm bringing it up is, number one, to keep you aware. It's pretty interesting to me. I think it's a great opportunity, but also because we didn't want to submit the grant, find out that we got the funds, and then bring it back to you and have you say, oh, wait a second, that's not something we're interested in, because that would be too bad for him in terms of his research if we got to that point and then pulled out. So I'm bringing it to you now to hear any feedback that you have, and just to see if you're supportive of us joining and actually just writing the grant and submitting it. It's due in December. So any questions that you have, any other information you'd be looking for? These grants through the National Science Foundation have ranged from $100,000 to over $2 million, which is pretty amazing to think.
Do you have to put in a request for a certain dollar amount?
No, it's totally zero-based budgeting. So you build the budget based on what you actually need. So there's no minimum amount. The funds that they would grant us would be primarily used for professional development of our teachers in Mukwonago who would be working with these students, to help them become more familiar with inquiry-based teaching strategies, which you can kind of think of as pretty close to hands-on kinds of teaching activities, more STEM-related teaching activities, so that when they're working with these undergraduates, they know what the university is looking for in terms of their work in the classroom. And then our hope would be, obviously, that would lead those teachers who have received that kind of professional development to become inquiry-based leaders, right, in our school district, right? They'll be much more familiar with that model of teaching and be able to share that with their colleagues.
So this is for staff just at Rolling Hills, or spread them out?
So right now, the original science grant worked through Rolling Hills. Even though the grant is over, that program has continued. Actually, we had 9 teachers at Rolling Hills in the original grant. And the following year, when the money went away, there were actually 12 teachers who stepped up and said, actually, we'd like to be a part of that, even though we know that there's no formal stipends, there's no formal training involved. So it seems to be well received. Matt is definitely open to other locations as we develop the grant. The one thing is that he has, he's looking for consistency across the semester, so that if he brings in a group of 20 undergraduates, that number one, the school is big enough that we can find enough teachers for them all to work with, and also then they would meet at that one school consistently. So if we do this over the span of several semesters, which the grant can be written for multiple years, we certainly could look at rotating it. That would be my goal. From the CNI student learning perspective, is to spread out the professional development and get a lot of teachers interested. In fact, I mean, how interesting would it be to have something like this, a laboratory kind of environment going in science, but also in maybe some other subject areas too, so that our teachers are honing their skills and getting professional development in reading and writing and social studies and all sorts of areas, and working pretty closely with these undergraduates. It's a pretty rewarding thing to kind of work with the next generation of teachers as a teacher. So to be identified, I guess, is the best
So
answer.
the primary school beginning would be Rolling Hills, though.
Right, because Matt has the relationships with those teachers already, and it would build on the work that he's already done there.
And it's possible that then those teachers could share what they know with other teachers, which we
Mhm.
talked about with other.
Right, outside of Rolling Hills,
Right,
certainly. Yeah.
right.
So we're just in the initial stages, of developing the grant, but I just thought it would be important to talk about it here before we actually write it and submit it.
anybody have any objections to them writing and submitting?
No,
Okay,
I
think
just
it's
would
good.
want to focus in on that, we as a district are interested in expanding throughout all our schools, not just one.
Mm-hmm.
But totally. So, I mean, somehow in that grant, you know, that's a future proposal, and maybe that would invite more money to educate more of our teachers in such a large district.
Right.
Is this for, how long, what's the timeframe that this would be for?
I think I'd have to look it up. I think the grants can be written for up to 3 years. It's definitely at least 2, but I think 3. But again, it's based on the grant that you write up. So if you
Right.
write it up that way where it's ongoing, then
So showing growth and stuff, that's why
Mhm.
I was saying that. And obviously then that would invite more money. I mean, if they're looking at, hey, they wanna hit how many students we have, 5,000 as opposed to a school that's writing there for
Mhm.
What
100
about,
kids.
and I imagine they would have certain reporting requirements as part of the grant.
Right, because these National Science Foundation grants are research grants, right? It's to actually further educational research. So yeah, there would be some reporting and some measurement of, what's actually happening. Is this actually improving the undergraduates' understanding of science? Is it improving our teachers' understanding of inquiry-based instruction? Right.
Who's gonna be doing all of that?
That
Are
would
we gonna
be.
is that gonna be Matt, or is that?
That it's going to be Matt, and he also has a team of a couple of other people from Whitewater who would be co-administering the
That sounds
grant.
like a lot of work for,
Right. No,
your time is occupied.
yeah, no, and I've indicated that to him, definitely. So, no, and I did ask about matching funds because I think we're pretty well aware that some grants require that a participant like a district put up matching funds, but Matt actually said he thinks the National Science Foundation prohibits matching funds. It's meant to be just the grant.
So we're good to proceed?
Yep.
All right, great.
Okay, thanks.
All right, moving on to Neola Power process.
Yep, that was just information for you that we will have those policies go live tomorrow, so we'll make the switch. Then we'll need to start reviewing our policies. So we'll have to have that discussion in the next couple months on how we want to proceed.
All right, now we're moving down to 2B, Highway NN project. Hey, Kurt.
So, Kurt's here if you have
That
any
was done by
questions.
September
As I said in my email to you last week, believe it or not, it has not been as bad as we thought it would be. Even here at Clarendon, there have been some ramifications, some negative ramifications, but for the most part, it's better than we expected.
Do
So I-
they, this is just me being not happy with construction work, but do they appreciate that fact that some people's perspectives, they kind of mucked this up a little bit?
Yes, if you ask the contractor that's in charge, he's gonna say, well, it was the guy in front of me that messed it up, so, yes, I think that delay at the start caused a lot of frustration from the village side and from us as well, but, things have been going good. I do go every Tuesday, they have a meeting, down at the job trailer, so I pop in every Tuesday just to get updates and let them know, what we have going on, if we have any events at the beginning of school. And so that's been working out good. This last week, they were in a hurry and they didn't really give us a definite, this is when we're gonna switch over the drives, but people figured it out. It wasn't a big deal. So I think overall, it's going better than I expected as far as traffic figuring it out, and no major incidences. So, curb and gutter is going in right now. I think they started on the far east side. They're working this way, and I see the string lines out. So here in the next couple of days, you'll probably see new curb, and that'll really give you the first visual of, okay, this is what it's going to look like as far as how wide the road is going to be with the 3 lanes. So overall, it's going all right though.
What's their new end date?
The new end date, I don't know. Did they? Are you aware of? I think
They
it's
have
early
not told
October, but
me.
I don't know what that that date is. Maybe they're afraid to put that date out
Yeah,
there.
even if they gave us one, I don't
Yeah.
know that we would trust them, so.
Yeah.
Well, it's just always good to have a goal.
Right.
That's true. But they seem to be making some progress now, though, so
Yeah.
we'll go with that.
Yeah, really what's left is the curb and gutter, and then binder course and paving course. So a lot of that site work, and then sidewalks. A lot of that site work is done, and the prep work is done. Now we should see a lot of progress the next couple of days. So it's curb and gutter, wait 7 days. You'll see, so next week, you should start seeing black on pavement, new pavement going down. So that's the binder course, and then they'll have a course that goes on top of that. But so it'll look like it's getting closer when you see the black asphalt going down.
CD project while you're at it?
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a quick snapshot or some quick pictures of the finished project over there, rather than doing a tour. But you guys are certainly welcome to go and do a tour. I'd be happy to walk you through this space.
I happened to go through there on open house night.
Okay.
They were thrilled. The agents were absolutely ecstatic with what happened.
It worked out well. We broke some rules as far as how you want to plan a project and go through just the nature of the project. I like I'm big about planning. I believe if you plan a project, that means it's going to be a successful project. We didn't have that luxury on this, but working with Karen Romboy, one of the staff members over there, that worked really well. We had good communication back and forth, and she was able to make decisions for the group, and we're planning on the fly, So that's went real well. We still have some long lead time items that we have to get installed over there. One is nothing that's major. One is there's a room that will get mats around the perimeter. So if there's a child that is having a situation and we'll put them in that room so that he or she's not going to hurt themselves in a padded room. And that's supposed to come in third week of September. And we have a door that we're waiting on, which isn't a big deal. And we have a washer and dryer that is that's coming through September as well. Otherwise, everything else is complete. So, just a quick recap. We first realized the issue that we had over there was moisture July 18th. We started 2 days later after we had the consultants out there, and then we met on that date on the 18th and determined that we had to do something. That was when I first gave you guys the updates. I learned that day. And there's a board meeting that night, so I gave you guys an update that, yes, we have an issue. We started planning right away as far as, okay, well, if we're going to take care of this moisture issue and clear out a bunch of the space, let's go ahead and do the renovation that was on our list. Last 2 years, we've had that on the list of at some point in time we want to upgrade this CD area. So we started that design. We lucked out that we had remediation guys and abatement guys in Clarendon already doing a project. So we already had time and material rates if there was something additional. So I had that bid out already from that first project that they were already doing, and they just happened to be finishing that week. And I said, rather than leaving site, let's have you move right over to this room and keep on going. So that was a 2-week remediation. And then we actually got in to start reconstructing and finishing the demo and then reconstructing on August 8th, and we finished it on August 26th. So the plan it would have been a little bit longer or much longer. When I first had it was my first response was, well, let's plan on the end of September we'll have this thing finished. It was 2,700 square feet, or it is 2,700 square feet that we renovated. So here's some before after pictures. Okay, so right when you walk into the CD area, the picture on the left, there was a corridor, a longer corridor that split off to 3 separate rooms. Picture on the right, we took that corridor away, and now when you walk in there, you go right into room 101, which is the primary room there, and then the other 2 rooms are off of that. So the staff work together, and then use 101 as the primary, and then the other 2 rooms are off of that. So you can see how that, when you walk in there, that door now, it's nice wide open space in there. So this is, rather than looking to the west, this is looking east down that corridor on the left. The existing corridor that was there, you notice there was lockers there. Those lockers got taken out, they utilized them, they went to open hanging coat racks. And now on the left you can see kind of a better idea of how big that room 101 is. degrees of issues. So, having a bathroom where they previously had to go down the corridor, so out that door on the left, and walk down the hall a little bit and then go into the bathroom. What we did is we expanded the bathroom, we doubled the size of it, and we had it right off of this main room 101. So basically, eliminated a door, added a door on this side. So this area right here, that's the start of the bathroom. So you walk in, the first 10 feet is kind of like a changing area with a bed. And then you go to another curtain, and that's the actual bathroom that has that's large. There's that bed that used to be in there. Got moved out to this additional space. So now we have plenty of room to take a wheelchair. We upsize this door so it's exceeds an ADA size door. It's 42 inches. So that turned out good. This is room 101, so that first room when you walk in, that's the existing on the left. On the right, you can see what it looks like now. We actually, one of the things that they work with on the kids over there is teaching them life skills. And one of the regulatory classes was, well, we might be able to teach them in the kitchen how to cook and work around the house. So we incorporated an undertone oven in there. Refrigerator, got all the cabinets. It's basically set up like a kitchen. It does not have a sink in here. We have a sink on the opposite side, but this gives them the simulation of how a kitchen would work and we can teach those life skills to kids. Now moving into room 102, which is the far end of that hallway that used to be there. This is looking to the north on the left, and then the right, same thing. So what we did is we added this half wall to kind of create a separate area over here. And now they have two separate areas that they can work in at the same time without work on different things with different students. Here's another picture in that same room. So this is on the other side of that half wall. So you'll know that was the another 103 is the third room in this wing, and that was one big open room on the left that was before, and on the right we put a dividing wall, a partial dividing wall across that again provided two separate spaces in this area. So teacher desk over here and smaller space, and then on the right hand side is this. This is where we're going to have mats around the wall. We have different exercises and swings for the students. It's actually a pool with balls and it's working on different functions with the kids. So they've been thrilled, a lot of great feedback. It really, thinking back how that project started, how it ended up, it was really a successful project that went out really well. Any questions on CD?
So the mats on the walls, I mean, are they doing any textures or anything on the walls too? I know there's a lot of them that really works well, having textures on walls.
So
For autistic.
so it's just dry. So the mat room has regular standard mats, and
Right.
then other areas has just flat painted drywall or
But I mean, if you're
block wall.
putting mats on the walls, if there's some, I mean, there's got to be various kinds of mats or whatever on the walls. Just maybe that, I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
So,
So what these look like, the ones that have been ordered, is the
oh, so
basic.
they're all.
Yeah, they're ordered. So they're 5 feet tall. It's very similar to what you'd see in a gym, where you have the 2-foot wide panel by 5 feet tall. So, yeah, the texture that used to be there was the old wall covering that and had those. You saw in the picture the vertical aluminum strips at every 4
And
feet.
with the 2-foot things, I just have friends, and maybe that'll work too. So.
Good.
All right,
Thanks, Chris. Yep.
all right, enrollment update.
I provided an update for everybody there. The short of it is that we thought back when we made our assumptions, financially speaking, we'd have a decrease of 25 FTE from last year's count, and that
that was what drives our revenue limit calculation and effectively how much money we can plan for. And as of right now, we are looking at approximately a 28 student decrease from last year, so we were fairly close to what our assumption was. So you can kind of just see over time there how we tracked it. And we did gain students throughout the summer, but just simply not enough to, again, overcome large graduating class sizes with smaller incoming class sizes. That's just a phenomenon that we'll have to continue to work through. So that's just simply an update there. There'll be a couple tweaks. There's some new things that are going on with our revenue limit and how that works. If there's any students that are in our district that are eligible for free and reduced lunch, and they attend any number of approved schools in Waukesha County that are part of the Wisconsin Parental Choice Program, you might have heard about. They've had this in Milwaukee, they've had it in Racine, now it's statewide. If those students attend Waukesha Catholic Memorials, is the most obvious one that's on this list. There's a few other schools in Waukesha, in the town or the city of Waukesha. If we lose any free or reduced kids to those schools, that will impact our revenue limit. I can't tell you how many students we're going to have here that are going to go to those schools, that we don't communicate with those schools. I'm not sure they would tell us those things. It's a wait and see, but I don't think it's going to be material whatsoever. Time will tell, though. There's a few other things that could change. Our final third Friday count will officially take place on Friday. We'll know a heck of a lot more in 5 days.
Open enrollment's 463. Did that go up? It looks like it went up.
That I think that went up to 469 altogether as of right now.
From last year.
It's about 469 right now. I think is my last look. So it basically held very steady, but open enrollment out went from 200 and some odd down to about 158.
But and actually, we don't have all of the open enrollment out numbers yet, because other districts are not required to inform us of those until the third Friday. So third Friday, we'll have a lot more information. So we're hoping that open enrollment out declines, open enrollment in increases. Give us a few more days and we'll have much more information for you.
Any other questions?
No, I just point out Eagleville. It's pretty exceptional. We were worried about 3 or 5 kindergartners. They're
Yeah.
14. They have 97 kids. Very nice.
And Ron's here, and I think that
Oh, yeah.
we all agree that that was a
It's not
fantastic,
because they
fantastic
saw him.
jump.
I heard all your
I-
kindergartners are boys though.
I think they're not all boys.
4 girls?
We've got, in the kindergarten, first grade classroom, there's 22 students, and 16 of them are boys.
That's good. We need them in
It's like-
football.
Nice
Yeah.
mix.
Peter, go.
All right. Anybody else? Okay. Moving on. Personnel committee. Staffing report.
Yeah, Nick has an update on staffing.
So this is on your packet on page 20. I just wanted to summarize here in September our staffing efforts this summer. And so I tried to hit on a variety of topics, the hiring that we did, some posting statistics, our turnover rate, which I know people are keen on knowing, and then some other information too. So all this is in your packet. I don't necessarily want to recap every single part because you obviously can read it. So a couple of things that I think is interesting is just to note that I think that all districts, not just us, are seeing an impact on the what some are calling that teacher free agency or teacher open market, where it's much more common now to see people continue to shop around. And as you noticed, we had a resignation that came to us on the Saturday between teacher in service and the start of school. She emailed the principal and me saying that she was going to resign. So I actually had worked a couple of days in the district and still was kind of keeping feelers out there. And I think that that is becoming more common. as there aren't kind of more consistent salary and benefits across district to district to district, you kind of can see what the market will bear and who will hire you for what salary and for what benefits, and maybe closer to home. Whereas I think back when on the second page of this, back when in 2011 when we had over 900 applications for a elementary teaching job, for example, people were just really thankful to get a job. And I think more often, as soon as they did get one, they just stopped because they knew it was such fierce competition that they were lucky to have a job, and so they didn't keep looking. So we are seeing that a little more often. The other thing that I'll note is also on page 2 of that report, we are seeing a drop in applicants in virtually every area. So even our elementaries postings are down from an all-time high in 2011 of 900 down to our first grade posting this year only had 219 applications, which is a pretty significant drop. That's hitting our specialty areas even harder. So you can see I put the top 5 or the bottom 5 postings, all under 15 applicants each. Those are pretty critical areas, places that we want to make sure we get somebody good, speech pathologist, Spanish, school psychology. So it's definitely become a little more difficult to fill those positions. Any questions before I move on to the turnover? Yeah.
So does this show that from 11 to now is more than the 4 years, that less people are going into education than they were before?
So that seems anecdotally, that seems to be what I'm hearing, is that undergraduate preparation programs are saying that their enrollments are down significantly. So UW Whitewater's teacher prep program is down pretty significantly.
But is it because, I mean, I know you can't, but are they going into something else, or are there just less kids going?
No, that's not true. Having done that, tracked that at Wisconsin Whitewater in their Office of Institutional Research, I looked at that specifically, and enrollment's not down at universities, they're up.
It's just they're going into different fields.
Correct.
So clearly we're not attracting the same number of people into education prep programs as we used to. So any other questions on those first 2 topics? Then just really briefly, I do want to hit on the retention page. So I put in a chart showing our historic retention data. So if you look at resignations, and that's what I tend to look at more, I don't think we have a lot of control over when people decide to retire. It's a very personal decision, and so I don't think that the district has a huge impact on that. Obviously in 2011 when we had 44 retirements, those were people who many didn't feel like they had a choice as Act 10 was being implemented, so they retired. But since then you can see we've bounced around from 6 to 13 retirements a year. But if you look at the resignations, that's what I pay a lot more attention to. Our resignation rate for the last 4 years has averaged 4.42% and 6 years under 4%. I think that's a really healthy sign. I think that's showing that we don't have a lot of transiency. And as you can see, we had 11 resignations this summer, and I tried to total up the reasons why people left. So we did have 3 who decided to leave public education. A couple actually started their own business or moved into private practice. 3 did move to another district. Sometimes that was due to location. Sometimes that was due to salary and benefits. 2 moved out of the area, and then just a smattering of a couple of other reasons. So anything on teacher retention that you have a question about? Or I think it is really interesting to know that we had 11 retirements, and that represented 273 years of service to the district. So that's really significant. And then at the end of my report, I just thought it's good for you to know that there's a lot more going on just than the hiring. I know that's what you see on your board agendas on a month-to-month basis when we're approving appointments, but we also handle a lot of staff transfers. There was a large number of staff transfers this year, so 19 staff members actually changed from one position to another, one grade level to another, or subject area to another. And we've continued to develop that, and I think as we face the shortages that I mentioned earlier, we're gonna have to continue to think about ways to grow our existing staff into roles like reading specialists or counselors or special education teachers. So I think that's gonna become even more important, and I think we have a good start on that. Also some long-term subbing positions that we've been adding. We're able to eliminate a couple of positions, but of course also had to add a couple of positions this year. And then in terms of staff morale, I just thought this was a great time, at least just to start letting you know that our beginning of the year, I feel, started really positively. We did do a survey after the back to school first day teacher in-service meeting on how that day went, and really, really great results. So 98.8% of the staff said that they felt like that provided a positive kickoff to the year. 97.9% of the staff said that they felt it helped set a shared vision for the year, and 97.2% said that it gave them time to meaningfully collaborate with their colleagues. So I think that's a great start. Any other questions? Comments?
Good
Okay.
job, Nick.
Alright.
Thanks.
Great, thanks.
Okay, board committee structure.
Right, as my memo stated, we started a new format about 6 months ago, and we said that we would review it after 6 months. So, looking for your input on how you want to proceed with the committee structure and meeting structure.
All right, how many of you want to keep going with what we're doing? Guess we'll just move it on. I'm fine with it.
Supposed to be 2 down.
2 meetings a month.
This is my second in a row.
I know, I noticed.
Yep. Right.
I think
I
we've
like the
done a
last
nice
one. I
job the
think
last
it's-
3.
Yeah. We did a
I'm
nice-
counting 3 as
The agenda.
tonight,
Yeah.
The agenda's been,
assuming we're moving along.
the agendas have been cooperative, there's not a lot, I mean, the big stuff kind of got out of the way in the spring, so this is gonna summer.
I just don't know what's gonna happen if they're bringing the policy back in, all that, that's gonna really affect.
That's-
Our office.
I think we're just going to have to be very willing to go into committee meetings when all that stuff is, or
Awesome.
we're not gonna do our job. Otherwise, I'm just self-employed. I'll let you play.
Okay, great, thanks. We'll
Alright.
continue. Then from my superintendent's report, I just had a couple of things. One was, you had asked that we put together the starting times of area high schools. So even before we got home that night, Nick had started to do some research and put some starting times together, and then Laura Strika added a few schools to that report, and we have it for you. And as you can see, most high schools in the area, except for Shorewood, start right about the same time that we do. And Shorewood. Yes,
Well, the high school doesn't, but their kids.
right.
Yeah.
So I was just looking at the high school, I'm sorry.
How can they start so much later and get out at 3:45?
Who's that now?
Middle,
Muskegon.
well, I was just looking at the middle school or, yeah. Muskegon.
Well, remember, elementary, you do not have to go the same number of hours that you do at the secondary level. And so if you take a look at our elementary hours in Mugwanago, we do have quite a large cushion for, a larger cushion at the elementary level than we do at the secondary level. So we could actually have that discussion down the road if we wanted to reduce the number of hours that our elementary students were attending.
Because if we push them to a later start, it would be slightly easier to push them in high school. No?
So if you want to proceed with us exploring a later start, then what we'll do is take a look at some options and then come back with the pluses and minuses. So yes, you could push the elementary to a later start and the high school, middle school to a later start, but there's going to be some ramifications on the back end of that. So if you start later, obviously you end later, and then what are the ramifications of that? So this is
So
what
are
you
all-
asked for, and now we're looking for your direction.
So are all of these the regular start? Cause I know at some of these, there's like a 0 hour. Are
So
the
we did
zero-
not include a 0 hour for all of them. I did point that out for Shorewood. So Shorewood, and I have more information for Shorewood. They did a nice report on their process, so I can share that with you next time. But there was some ramifications for starting later. I think they even wanted to start later than the 8:05, but there was some pushback on that. And so one of their ways to compromise was to add a 0 hour. So I'm sure that some of their athletes, for example, are taking that 0 hour class and maybe not, and I can't remember if they have a 7 hour day, but
I think
so-
Waukesha has a 0 hour too.
yeah, we had a 0 hour at McGuanago High School at one time.
So that's an optional hour, so you could start earlier and leave earlier, or start
You
first hour and leave a little
I'd
later?
have to check, but that's how we did it at McGuanago High School. Or some people choose to, that's how you add an additional class to your schedule. So you do the 1st through 7 plus the 0 hour, so you get another class in. So we
that-
started our 0 hour at, I think, 6, boy, that's quite a while now, 6:40 maybe?
It was, yeah, and if you were one, yeah, it was like,
It was early.
It was early, and if you were late, it was like, ah.
So we can continue to explore it. I'm just looking for your,
Well, cause the other thing is, we're hoping after the renovations to maybe look at something different too, so we wouldn't want, in my opinion, we wouldn't wanna start messing with start time until we started looking at the whole picture.
so if we do go to a block or modified
Right.
block, obviously that would have a ramification
Right.
on
Right.
a 0 hour possibility, but certainly I can bring you back more information. Or we can wait until we see what kind of schedule we get at the high school.
Probably more practical for me to see what kind of schedule. But I'm not letting this die here since they just came out.
Well, and that'll give,
It
that'll
just
give
gives us
those other,
time, right?
that'll give those other people a chance to try it out.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, are we
just had to say
comfortable
that
waiting
for you.
until
Thank you.
the high school has their schedule? Anybody object to that? Okay.
Okay, great.
Move on.
Education Foundation event is Saturday, October 8th at Gearbox Express. So that is a change from our format for the last several years. Instead of a Sunday afternoon, we're on a Saturday evening. Not at the Broadlands, we're at Gearbox. And so we're hoping that several of you will attend. And if you need more information, let me know.
Mary just asked why they moved it, and we've been at the, Broadlands for years. And, decided to try something different. The Gearbox is new, and they have a space that they thought would be interesting to have for an event like this, and so that's why.
St. Hope is, are they sending out invitations?
See,
or-
They
Okay.
did, I got one.
Hey, you should have received one, but if you
And
didn't get one, I'll get you one.
I got one. Mary.
It might have been in with her vacation mail, so.
Well,
I'll give you a copy of the car.
Yeah. Yeah, it's on vacation. I don't know what I got.
It looked kinda like,
Okay.
And then I included an article that I had shared with our administrators this morning about improving staff morale. And so that was out of the Journal Sentinel from a local human resources person. So we thought that there were some very timely recommendations in there for our administrative staff to work on. I like the article. It's short, with some good advice.
Yeah, I actually read it as well, and I thought there was, there were quite a few bullet points that were very good, that transcend from business to education, and some, there were a couple points that really don't, but if, as long, you know, other than that, if there's an article like that specific to education, that'd be fantastic to also try to research. 'Cause I thought the
Absolutely.
article was decent. Thank you for sending it.
I like point number 7.
Is that the one that said be nice to people? I can't remember.
Be
Number 7 is
visible.
be visible.
Yeah. Yes.
Get out of your office.
Yeah.
I think that these guys can tell you that I stress that all the time.
All right. Any other questions? Go on. Correspondence legislation?
I guess
Oh,
that's
did I
actually
miss
under
one? No, I missed
correspondence.
one.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, you may have.
Did I-
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped one thing on my
you
superintendent's
did.
report. That was with
I
the track, the shot put improvement. So as you know, we talked about the shed replacement. That was using some district funds. We're also going to be doing some work on the shot put area. That is no district funds. So I wanted to make sure I was keeping you posted on that.
Now, correspondence legislation.
That was the article. That was it.
That was just the article.
That was it.
All right, well, skip it and move back.
So
Board member questions?
I have a couple of things. One is in my car or something, but in the journal, there was an article on a test that Kettle Moraine is taking that,
Sure.
is to see how our students fare worldwide.
Yes.
And it didn't seem to be a real long test, and I didn't know if it was something we should look into, especially maybe into that certificate for those kids that are wanting to get that certificate for the world global certificate. At least start somewhere and have volunteers take it rather than, okay, we all gotta go take this thing now, but it was I thought it was a
Right.
well-written article.
So we can bring back information to share with you about PISA test. Is that what it is? Yep. And so that's a test that students take across the world. And so every fall, I think the results come out in the fall, and then usually you see how kids in the United States stack up against students across the world in other countries, but then also you can see how your students stack up against other students in
And
our
I
country,
can
in the
bring
United
the
States.
article in, like
Sure.
I say, it's in the car, it's not in my bag, so.
So we can bring back more information.
And I don't know if you know this or not, but is there a particular age group like for that testing? Is it like high school, secondary school, elementary
is.
school?
It's high school students,
Okay.
and
I can run
I'm
get
not
it.
sure if it's juniors, seniors.
I can
I'll-
run get it if you want me, I can
Okay.
get it whenever.
No, I
I'm
have it.
ready.
Alright.
Oh,
I
okay.
have it. So we have a file on
next
that. We can
meeting's
bring
fine.
back
I was
information.
Just a little curious.
It's high school, and I thought it was, I think it's all high school.
Yeah,
it
and
was
that
'cause
could be.
Because they did it for different clubs, because they started it out with certain pockets of students, and then they expanded it, and then they used some of the information they learned from it to change some of their curriculum
Yep.
to, just tweak it and like,
Enhance, yeah.
everything, so.
Interesting.
Just briefly, I know we all received an email and citizens concerned about the renovation of the high school. And Mary, myself, and Jim Barron met with Captain Quincy last week,
Wednesday.
Wednesday. And really, it was a great meeting. In the end, what was more evident was they just wanted to make sure we were communicating with them as we could about things that are going on, which I believe we're doing. And just had last meeting, the presentation by Julie about all the communication efforts. So it really was a great meeting, and everybody was very happy with the results.
Jerry, sorry.
Well, this is a weird thing. So I got this letter about a dinner and a recognition thing. And so I'm asking if it would be, so it'd be a positive board, whatever, exposure, that I would go to this thing.
I think that same dinner I went to, and
I think
Joanne
Joanne
went
did
to
one.
it last year.
So,
And it was
I'm-
fine.
I mean, it's not a,
So
it's the night of my, it's the night of my programming, but I will gladly, I didn't know what to do with it, so I'm bringing it here to ask, does everybody wanna go, does anybody else wanna come?
I can't.
I don't wanna come by my goal.
So is it the WASB recognition,
Yes.
our region
Yeah.
recognition for
Yes.
you?
Yes,
Oh, great, congratulations.
thank you.
So I usually get a copy of that. I did not, so I apologize. Otherwise, I would have included it in the agenda.
Well, that's why it's kinda weird. It's kinda weird, like, okay, well, do you want me to go with it? And then there's some kind of a meeting afterwards, so.
Right. The
Yes.
28th with the, they vote on.
So it-
Yeah.
and
And it really, it was a,
so I should go?
okay, yeah, if you can make it, it's not bad to go through.
Okay, and then with that, were we supposed to have somebody there that we kind of gave someone else that job and they're not here anymore?
No, we've
Represent,
never
that's
had
not,
That
that's
wasn't
not
a-
this?
that wasn't it.
That's something
not that.
different? The one that we
Yes.
have
That was
mandated?
CISA 6 and.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, I just was double checking, so, but if someone would like to go with me,
I have it tentatively on my calendar.
So it's Wednesday, September 28th? Okay.
At Country Springs, right?
No, that was it.
Okay.
I
Anybody
will
else?
say that Sean's Trump impression was very much worth seeing.
It was.
It was good.
Thank you.
The in-service, I appreciated it.
Was it taped, was it recorded, so we can all,
I do not think so.
You could probably do it. You could do it again though if you asked
No,
nicely.
he was dressed for it, and look, it was good. It was very good. The
Thank you.
staff, like, clapped and cheered and hooped and hollered at the removal of the 16 hours.
They
So
were,
that was a very good
I don't know
response.
if everybody else has seen it out in the dark as I did get a card from one of the teachers, thanking the board for eliminating.
Send that back to her.
yeah, they were very happy. And I gave the credit to the board.
And
Donna,
Nick,
give the credit
I
to Donna.
enjoyed
Brought it
your
up.
presentation as
Oh, we
well.
would've never known it existed.
Talking about literacy in
Good.
all
The teacher
subject
presentation.
matter. Loved it.
Tom's was good too about the health insurance change.
Tom, how did that go afterwards for you?
We had our first informational meeting today in the small group setting with the high school staff and the middle school staff. And I think once people learned more and got their questions answered, I think we're good. Of course, that's on the whole, it's good. There's probably most definitely individuals that are impacted by this, but all in all, on the whole, it's good.
The meeting went better than I expected.
Right, anyone else? All right, citizens' comments?
I move
Motion to
go
move in a
executive
sec.
session.
We have a motion?
Second.
All right, Jerry?
Tim Augustine, not here, Todd Clemens.